South Korea currently holds a statistical record that no nation wants, the lowest birth rate in the world. Look inside almost any maternity ward here, and the quiet is unmistakable. For over a decade, the government operated on the assumption that this was a matter of incentives. They concluded that young adults were simply waiting for a financial nudge, a little extra cash, to convince them to have children. The state poured billions of dollars into cash subsidies and financial incentives to lower the cost of a baby. But the birth rate, represented by this plunging line, shows the actual result. Despite massive state funding, newborns continued to plummet. Citizens noted a clear disconnect. While allowances arrived in their bank accounts, the physical conditions of their daily lives remained exactly as they were before. A panel of 25 global experts recently reviewed this cycle. They found that South Korea's socioeconomic structure has reached a point where family formation feels like a catastrophic risk, regardless of the amount of cash the state provides. When the foundation is structurally broken, cash subsidies don't create new families. They address a symptom, while the structural problems continue to deepen. The first structural barrier acts as a barricaded entrance. Over the last few decades, South Korea has aggressively concentrated its best jobs, universities, and infrastructure inside the capital city of Seoul. For young adults, moving to Seoul is a requirement for economic survival, but cramming half the country's population into one metropolitan area sparks brutal competition for a strictly limited amount of space. This competition has caused an explosion in housing costs. Average real estate prices have detached entirely from stagnant starting salaries, creating a vertical wall of debt for anyone trying to secure a home. This financial burden has a physical effect on the timeline of human lives. Young people spend their prime energetic years simply trying to secure basic shelter, pushing marriage and family planning back by years. When a young couple is staring down $1 million mortgage for a small apartment, a slight bump in a monthly government cash bonus doesn't change their reality. It is difficult to ask a generation to build a family when the society they live in has priced them out of the physical floor required to stand on. If a couple manages to scale the housing wall, they hit the second barrier, a corporate ecosystem that physically drains the workers trapped inside it. Many Korean companies still operate on a rigid baseline that assumes an employee has zero domestic or caregiving responsibilities and can dedicate their entire waking life to the office. Economics Nobel laureate Claudia Golden and other experts point to the motherhood penalty. In an environment that rewards endless hours, having a child heavily penalizes a woman's career trajectory and earning potential. At the same time, workplace stigma often prevents fathers from taking meaningful parental leave. This forces mothers into a cycle of unsupported domestic labor, while their professional lives stall. The modern company in this ecosystem ceases to be a place of livelihood. It acts as an active adversary to the family unit, demanding the exact hours and energy needed to raise a child. Young adults are looking at this collision and doing the math. They are choosing to avoid a system that forces a choice between basic economic survival and parenthood. The final barrier stops families from growing. It is the grueling attrition of the private education market. Almost immediately after a child is born, parents are thrust into a hyper-competitive educational arms race. Private academies, known as hagwons, dominate the schedules of young children. This creates a crushing financial load, but the psychological weight is often borne by mothers, who are pressured to act as extreme educational managers for their children. The sheer cost and time required to survive this competition often shuts down the conversation about a second child completely. Raising a child here is rarely framed as a joyful expansion of life. It is treated as a high-risk, high-stress, decades-long financial project. This brings us to a specific warning from the experts regarding how the state measures success. There is an inherent danger in optimizing a country for the wrong metric. When a government targets the birth rate as its primary goal, policies become shallow. They start treating citizens like national resources to be managed, rather than people trying to build secure lives. This requires the state to adopt a new objective. Success would be measured by whether it is actually possible to form a family without facing economic ruin. As experts like Gösta Esping-Andersson suggest, this requires structural changes. It means decentralizing housing, enforcing a normalized work-life balance, and building a welfare state that supports joint caregiving as the standard. If the structural barriers are dismantled, the birth rate will rise as a byproduct. It will happen organically, without the need for state mandates or desperate cash incentives. South Korea doesn't need to convince its youth to want families. It needs to build a society where having one is a reasonable choice, rather than an act of economic self-destruction.